Michelle?
Okay. Okay. Venita's here. Randie's here. And the echo is here.
Well, let's see.
Love?
Yes.
Okay. And I saw Venita was here, and Randie, the same kind of thing is going on that we had last time.
Or the bottom picture?
Right, where all I have is a black screen for you.
I'll sign in and out. Because I don't see myself either.
Okay.
Michelle, I'm not joining you all this evening. I was trying to catch you early. I thought you would be here earlier.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I didn't think you were coming tonight, and so I was, I turned on this one at 6:15, and normally you're, the only one that's there at that time. But since you weren't there, I thought I remembered you had said you weren't going to be able to join us tonight. So, I didn't think it was really strange, and then it got to be 6:30, and I started saying, "Oh no, not again."
I knew something was up when I signed in and I didn't see you, Michelle, but I don't know why I didn't think anything of it. Like, I knew something was up though. I was like,
yeah, well, y'all need to get in the habit of calling me if you know you signed in and I'm not there, because I'm always on by 6:15, really at the latest.
Well, since you're so perfect in every way, Michelle, I didn't think to call you because I just figured that give you one time when something may happen.
Yeah, but since we seem to be having some kind of technical thing going on here, and I don't know what it is, because I'm not doing anything differently than I've been doing for 2 years.
All of a sudden, too.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be able to join you. We're supposed to. What's that?
It just happened when Kim came in.
Oh.
It might have been temporary. Okay, so is everybody here that was here before?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. What about Georgette and Joelle? Huh?
I was wondering about those two.
Okay, she wasn't at the other. She wasn't at the other site.
No.
Okay. We do have one viewer. Georgette, if that's you, look in the session 6 group for the most recent link.
I can hear you, Joelle. I can't see you.
You hear Joelle?
Oh, hold on a second. Hi, Joelle. We're on the other link, so if you go into notifications, Michelle posted the link where we can record.
On Facebook.
On Facebook. I forgot to close this window. That's why you're seeing me. So you just shut this one down and go over to notifications, and there's another link. All right. See you in a minute.
So, how long are you staying, Venita?
I'm going to say I knew we were going to choose another timekeeper tonight, and Randie volunteered. However, when we were on the other link, I said I was going to nominate Joelle for that job if he would be so gracious to take it, although Randie volunteered to take that job. So, Randie, you all right, baby?
Yeah, I'm okay. I know. Oh, I'm okay.
So that's what the plan was. But I think I'll stay and listen. I just am not prepared because I wasn't, you know, Michelle, how things have been. So, but I will listen.
Okay.
Where's Joelle?
Now it says we have 2 viewers.
Maybe that's Georgette.
Down to 1. Do you still have the other link open, Kim?
No, I don't. I think that's why it caused so much ruckus when I came in, so I closed it.
Right.
Do you want me to go to that link and see if there's someone there?
No. Let me call. Oh, I have a message.
Oh.
Oh, not from him. So what's the great conversation you were having?
Well, we can't talk about it because we're live now. That's how great it was. Yeah.
You can't talk about it in code?
I see you smiling, Miss Nicole.
Hey, Georgette.
Hey, I finally made it. I've been to every Hangout link.
I know, Joelle. Georgette, I don't know.
You are the only one here. Well, invite somebody. Okay. Oh, no. Well, I'm not trying to hang out by myself, y'all. Okay. Right. So
I don't know what's been going on. Hey. Well, I'm okay. I don't know why we're having these technical problems. Are you on Facebook? Yeah, I don't know why the links are, I'm gonna have to figure out a new plan. But anyway, if you're on Facebook, it should be the most recent notification that you have, or go to the Session 6 group, and the most recent link in that group is where we are. Okay? Okay. Bye. Bye. So I don't know. You know, what I've been doing is posting a link in the Session 6 group, and then the same exact link in the email that I send you. So I don't know why it is sending us to 2 different locations. But I guess I'm going to have to just start sending it to one place. So what's going to be the better place? Everybody's on Facebook, right?
Mhm.
yeah.
So maybe I'll just do the Hangout links in the Session 6 Facebook group.
Yeah,
Okay.
So
that's
no more
probably good.
email, Kim. And then it'll just at least be the one link. I don't know. So Joel said he was on the way.
Okay.
So I don't know. So Nicole is facilitating tonight. So Nicole, are you ready to get started?
Yeah, I can't. I hope I don't butcher. So I'm just gonna kind of first, everybody introduces herself, himself, and then and I'm just gonna follow this script, and then we roll right into it. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I've done it. Yeah.
Okay.
So am I starting? Go right ahead. All right, okay. Well, welcome to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle, Session 6, running from February 2nd to July 19th, 2016, 6:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So we're reading When and Where I Enter, The Impact of Black Women on Race and Sex in America by Paula Giddings. And we'll start with, and tonight's topic of discussion will be Chapter 10, A New Era Toward Interracial Cooperation, and Chapter 11, A Search for Self. And so we'll begin with introductions. I'm Nicole Jackson-Wilson from Houston, Texas, and go to our co-hosts.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Odom, joining you from Brooklyn, New York. Hey, Randie.
I'm Randie Chapman, and I'm joining you from Atlanta, Georgia.
All right. And so the Hangout conversationalist, Venita.
My name is Venita Goins-Walker, and I'm joining you from Cromwell, Connecticut.
Georgette.
Hi, I'm Georgette Moses, and I'm joining you from Columbia, South Carolina.
Great. Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim, and I am in New York.
Okay. And I'm not sure Joel is on yet.
It looks like he's not on yet, so
Okay.
I don't know. I guess we just keep moving.
All right.
In terms of he was going to be the timekeeper, I guess.
Well,
Randie.
I'll keep the time here. I'll keep the time since I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Venita. Okay, so next week's moderator will be Venita Goins-Walker, and our timekeeper for next week, we need to identify a timekeeper. Volunteers?
Okay, I volunteer.
Okay.
Well, actually, Georgette, I think the reason that Venita suggested Joel might want to do it is so it might give him something to do so he can stop cutting me off every time I speak.
Okay. Sounds like a good idea. Okay.
little structured activity.
And that does seem like a good plan.
He facilitates the meeting. He keeps everything on track. He goes boom, 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 boom. He don't want nobody talking out the turn.
I know, right? He's good at that.
But when he doesn't have a task to do, he's just a troublemaker.
Well, this is the task because he's going to cut you off.
Yes, that's his favorite thing. So, he was trying to spare his life.
Okay.
Right.
I'm all for humanitarian. That sounds like a good one.
Hopefully he will accept this mission with a smile.
I think he will.
Right, so then we'll nominate Joel and see. Okay, so our community rules are just remember to not mute mics and to also be, unless I guess in case of emergency extreme noise, and be sensitive to sound, I guess. Okay, and so we'll begin our key points and discussion. So, so before I begin, I'll read the summary and then we'll go through the questions. But one of the things that I just kind of wanted to mention in creating the discussion questions, because we had two chapters, I kind of vacillated between chapter 10 and chapter 11. So that was really it for each section there. Okay, so should I read the summary or should I read the summary, Michelle, and then is that how we generally?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So so to just kind of summarize the two chapters, recently former MSNBC talk show host Dr. Melissa Harris Perry posed via Twitter quintessential question regarding when and where Black women enter. She asked, "What's so threatening about Black women's leadership?" Throughout Chapter 10, A New Era Toward Interracial Cooperation, and Paula Giddings provides historical context to examine those ways that Black women's leadership is, to borrow Toni Morrison's verbiage, dreaded and desired in the national imagination. As Giddings explains, Black women's leadership was treated as an oxymoron. This is significant because even though the Roaring Twenties ushered in American modernism, and though the era showcases the modern white woman attaining political agency as a result of enfranchisement, which is aided by industrialization and mass production, Black women instead face the contradictions of modernity. As a result, time, justice, and the written word ultimately proved that Black women faced and had to negotiate a political fiction as it relates to American citizenship. Hence, Chapter 10 demonstrates that Black women and white women were not evenly franchised in the modern USA. Accordingly, interracial alliances were largely failed experiments. Chapter 11, A Search for Self, however, moves strategically from the political to the personal, thereby affording Giddings the opportunity to argue that at the core of Black feminist activism, the personal is in fact political. And because the project of white supremacy is as American as an apple pie, the political or policies is nuanced by the personal, race and gender. So we'll just start the key points and discussion questions by just kind of looking at like that, keeping that theme, time, justice, and the written word. So kind of looking at time and interracial as well as intraracial alliances. Would anyone like to volunteer to read A and the discussion questions posed?
I can do that.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Time and interracial, interradical alliances. A. At the beginning of Chapter 10, Giddings explains that Southern white women began to understand the need to ally with the Black women activists on issues of common concern. Question 1. Please reconsider, and evaluate Giddings' meanings of contending with time. How does the author represent the role of time in the chapters? Can one argue that time and perhaps the fear of running out of time compelled Black women to form weak interracial alliances? If so, what did Black women gain as it relates to leadership? What did they lose? Question 2. Consider the author's depictions of Black masculinity, social stratification, and their connections to interradical alliances. In Chapter 11, please examine that which can be classified as contentious issues of common concerns, issues such as portrayal of women in media, domestic labor issues, the wage gap, the corporate climb/glass ceiling, Black bodies and violence, democracy and education. How might those issues unveil complex political/historical implications related to Black women's leadership?
Okay, I probably should have shortened those questions. I'm sorry.
That's the professor in you coming out, huh?
There's a lot of questions there.
Grad school too long.
Okay. So just any of the questions, that you would like to answer. That was like overkill. I didn't recognize it.
I had to take notes.
Okay.
I said, what?
Nicole came with both barrels. Boom. But that's good. That's good. You make them.
I'll be better next time.
It's gonna make us work. Oh my God.
That's all right.
Well, let's see what I have here. On question one, how does the author represent the role of time? What did Black? I said that one way she represents time is in examining the dominant attitudes of a particular era. And so, for example, by the 1920s, the attitudes and material reality, I guess I would say, because one example is that by the 1920s there was a perceptible middle class, and so that represented a significant change from where we had come, and having that middle class also created the conditions under which some white people then felt that they could talk to this group of Black folks, you know, where they weren't feeling that before. So it created the context for allyship to emerge. And it was also this time period where Black people were starting to disassociate themselves from the pain of our past. And so in terms of how Giddings deals with time, you know, I'm saying that it's looking at how things changed in various periods. On the question about were Black women compelled to form weak interracial alliances, I said I don't think Black women were compelled to form weak interracial alliances as much as they were aware of the ways in which white women's attitudes had not changed so much over time, and you know they knew white women pretty well, so so I don't think there was any naivety going into those relationships. You know, like that meeting where the white women felt like, you know, you're just treating us like a part of the group,
Right.
Instead of honored guests. Well, the Black women knew what they were doing, and they knew who they were dealing with, and you know, and they knew that they were on their space, their turf, you know. And I don't think that they expected much in terms of from the allyship. So my answer is no. I don't think Black women were compelled, at least from their own knowledge and perspective, to form weak interracial relationships.
Michelle, your 3 minutes are up. Would you like to have more time?
Yeah, because I may be the only one to answer the question. So,
Really?
I'll take another 3, please.
Okay.
No. And then the question about what did they gain or lose. I said by maintaining their own clubs, Black women gained self-respect and the capacity to argue on their own behalf. A loss may have been in their access to resources. So I'll stop with question 1.
What was the last thing you said, Michelle? A loss may have been what?
access to resources by, at one point, it may have been the last chapter that was talking about, even though, the black women had 50,000 women in the group, they still felt the need to branch out into other organizations because they didn't have the access to the resources that they needed to do a lot of the things they wanted to get done. Joelle, you're here.
Yeah.
You had some problems?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Joel from Charleston, South Carolina. Glad to be here.
Okay, Venita has an invitation for you.
Hi, Joelle. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine. Invitation. Connected.
Yes.
What?
Yes. I have been a timekeeper now for quite a while, and I wanted to pass that torch on to you, if you'll accept.
Yeah, I'll accept it. Some kind of setup? What?
Well, no, it's just that we know that you're a military man and you're time sensitive and all that other stuff that goes with that.
Oh, and I'm 30 minutes late. I'm time sensitive. That sounds pretty good.
That's a good start. It's a good start. However, I'm sure that you're capable, so I'm glad you accepted that. I'll finish up tonight, and after this evening, your new job will be timekeeper. It's 3 minutes for everyone, of course. You know that already. If someone goes, once it's at 3 minutes, you need to cut them off and ask them nicely, cut them off, and ask them if they'd like to have more time and allow them a minute or two at a time. I guess it depends on the conversation. Okay?
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate the confidence, and I'm going to buy a clock today. And yeah, I'll have to do it fashionably. Y'all will know when it's time because a big alarm is I mean, I'm gonna get one of my old-fashioned ones that's gonna go.
See, I was just too subtle for the group. We need to feel military behind the timekeeper. Okay, all set.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, okay. So,
I'm sorry. Just I wanted to say, just in terms of the idea of time, it just reminded me of Martin Luther King's speech, "Why We Can't Wait." And when you look at lynchings to be like the watch, the stopwatch that says when you get to this many lynchings, that's why we can't wait. And so to see the number of lynchings go down from 300 in that period down to 100 in another period, and the terror that comes along with it, you can walk down the road and see somebody you know hanging on the street. I think that it was nice to kind of, Nicole, for you to put it in just that lens of the time, because I never kind of thought about it like that. And in terms of allies, the thing I liked about this chapter was it just talked about the perception of power that African Americans thought that white women had when they started to engage with them. Because at the end of the day, they just got some of that power. And I mean, there are always exceptions. There are always very strong women who dominate their men and their sons. But at the same time, I think white women had just gotten the vote and whatnot. And so I think that black women were thinking, well, whatever you have, get me to the point where I have it too. And some of these women were fronting. They didn't actually have that power, and they couldn't say to their husbands, hey, listen, over chicken dinner, we need you to stop lynching people. No more lynching, okay? And then he was going to run out and say he's not going to do it again because she just got enlightened. I just thought about what was it that you were asking white women to do, and then did they want to do it? And I think that was one of the things that if I was the privileged group and I had people doing everything for me and I barely had to pay them, I may be married to that. I may be married to that concept of, having somebody come and clean the tub. And now all of a sudden you saying to me that I may have to do that. So I don't know. I think that they probably gained a whole new understanding of what the conversation had to be. Because I just think so many things were changing. It was information. I think they gained information. Some of it they liked, and some of it they didn't like. But I think they gained a whole different perspective of being in close proximity, having conversations with white women that weren't subservient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good. Okay. Anyway, I apologize. Those were just too many questions. So just like anyone, I'm sorry.
It's okay. They're deep.
I just making us bring out A game. I had to pull out my A game.
You brought it. It's all right. Okay. Well, I just want to slip in that I think one of the things that they lost by engaging with the white women who appeared to be in power, or at least they thought they were, was their unity when they started to, within the organization, differentiate between the working class woman, black woman, with the more aristocratic or educated black woman. So I think that was a real loss there. That unity. Now you're identifying more with the people you're trying to seek their type of power, rather than keeping your group consolidated and squashing all those internal. You know how women do. How we can do.
Right.
Squash that stuff and maintain that that unified front, and then perhaps they could have I don't know, forced the particular dialogue that was published in the pamphlet, nationally instead of just among their own peers.
Yes.
So I think that was one of the losses. That's all.
Anyone else? Right. Well, we could move on to B. Okay, so with B, so kind of looking at modernity, black bodies kind of suspended in modernity and the search for justice. So I'll read that and then we can get someone to read the questions. Oh, well, before we move on, I just wanted to say in number 2, I butchered that. Actually, I was thinking about like contemporary issues of concern, even though it's like contemporary, but they still remain contentious. And so I was thinking about specifically like Black Lives Matter, Black Bodies and Violence, and the historical implications related to black women's leadership, and more specifically how it has been, some members of Black Lives Matter have brought up the fact, my idol, legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw, she said that, black women tend to show up in droves when black men have been assaulted by the police and are on the front lines and so forth, but when black women are terrorized by the police, they don't necessarily see a consistency with black men. And so that's where I was just kind of, thinking about those types of issues. Is there an implication, a political implication there? Because, Black Lives Matter was founded by black women. And so anyways, I was just thinking about how we could kind of think about those contemporary issues that even though they're of common concern, they're not there's not necessarily, as Georgette had talked about, unification around those things. But okay, so why don't we just go ahead and move to B, and I can read the. I don't know. Did I give a second summary? I think I gave a second summary. Okay, I'll read the summary, and then if somebody can just volunteer to read the questions. So, okay, so Black Bodies Suspended in Modernity, Searching for Justice. Further in the text, Giddings asserts that war production needs and economic development were driving forces behind the use of social science to soften but not refute notions of Black inferiority. Still, this tactic appears to undergird and support racial hierarchy, as white Americans were accustomed to being viewed and treated as superiors. They were able to experience a modern master-slave paradigm in which white bodies were free to secure the blessings of modernity, as well as freely interact with the structures modernity supported, like mass media, urbanization, advancements in transportation, the rise of the middle class, and so forth. However, Black bodies appear to be suspended in modernity, not convincingly moving forward because of enfranchisement, but not wholly stuck in the nation's past. Despite the desire to secure the protection of citizenship, the search for justice remained daunting. Giddings states whites knew only Black servants and the criminal in the daily papers. Later in chapter 11, Giddings expresses how modernity, expressed in mass production and the rise of media technologies, foster opportunities for Black artists and the literate Black middle class / consumers to connect. So would anybody volunteer to read numbers 3 and 4, please?
Okay, I volunteer.
Okay.
Number 3. Upon considering the need to protect Black bodies, how would you defend the political function of social science, the desire to study the whole question of race relationships, the needs of Negro women and children, and methods of cooperation by which better conditions can be brought about in that era? Why is the focus on the political function important? And number 4, as Giddings explores art produced in the late 1920s, she engages Black women's art as activism, which can also be argued as contributing to the search for justice. Interestingly, Giddings' descriptions of Black women artists has political implications in that not only do the writers profile Jessie Fawcett, Nella Larson, and Zora Neale Hurston choose to enter the conversation about identity politics differently, but they also engage in diaspora. Which literary excerpt did you most identify with, and why?
Crickets.
Well, I want to try at number 3.
Okay.
I want to try. Because I've actually been looking at this question the whole time. Trying to, it's making me think of, now, Nicole, are you asking ultimately why is the focus on political function important for like the study of like sociology, anthropology, like the social sciences? Why is it those? That's the social sciences you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to be clear. So the whole time reading these chapters, it made me think of historicism, like the literary theory I used for a thesis that I wrote my senior year about lynching, which I've talked about multiple times on here. And lynchings came up in these chapters. And so I think that focus on political function is important because in that part with Ida B. Wells, when they discuss how she had had like a wake or something for the men who had been hung because they shot some white men in defense and they had like hung them. And so the Secret Service came down and said that she was committing treason. And I think that, like, historicism says, you look at history and you interpret what that means. That's just very lamest term. It's much more complex than that. But it made me think about that in this context, because it shows that a lot of, obviously we know this, like, oppression was intentional. These white women, the black women were skeptical about the white women for good reason, because of a history of, like, historical, like, this history of constant, I don't know, dishonesty, not really fully utilizing, not really fully willing to be whole allies. Like, when it came up with the wording of this verbiage of this pamphlet that was going out, how they completely went left and changed, like, took lynchings out, or they added, like, this portion to the lynchings part, and they rearranged some words, and black women were like, that's not talking about any of our concerns. So I think that it's important to focus on the political function, because it shows how intentional all of this was, and that, like, the government is going to have to sincerely take control, and like, be just as intentional as it is with oppression about reparation and true, like, healing and reformation and all that. So I hope I answered that. Like, I'm up here thinking about it, and I really wanted to take a stab at it. But I do think that focusing on the political function is important, because it definitely came up in these chapters.
Professor, can I started having PTSD flashbacks when I started reading your scholarly. I was like, hell, I was like, I don't know if this is a flashback or do I need to go back to drinking caffeine? But anyway,
like, what happened to our fun little group?
I'm like, damn, I might as well go ahead and start the next level. But anyway, on number 3, and that's one thing I really appreciate about the question, because the only way I can really understand a lot of readings is that, especially from a historical standpoint, is related back and forth to what does it mean today. And, and I think that the activists of that particular time, and we have to keep in mind that the time-wise, they didn't really have that much time, 35, 45 years of being free to, so so we have to really think about what they was really working with, socially. It was really the first ones. And when I look at collaboration that the women had, when you collaborating with someone, and the mission may not even be the same. You know what I mean? And so their core mission was even the same as the white woman. So it was basically impossible for them to have the same outcome. Of course, they were looking for allies, but they didn't understand, their mission was totally different. But as I look at this, and why is the focus of political function? See, they had a political function that was only people that can change that was happening to them was politics had to change that, laws had to change that, but they were activists. So activism, so let's fast forward to Wall Street. The reason why it failed, they refused to involve politicians. How can you have effective change from the outside without going inside? You have to work within the system. I don't care if you don't believe in the system. The best way to bring the system down is from the inside, not the outside. So when I think about this, if you want to think about something that completely failed, it would be Wall Street failed because they refused to have political allies. So in the conscience of what everyone is trying to do in any type of activism, you must have activists that you can have allies on and and have collaboration and cooperation. But on the other hand, you must have, the politics of everything to make it actually happen. I hope I answered the question. I don't know. I could get an F on this one. I don't know.
Joe, can I ask you a question?
That's good.
When you
Yes.
say Wall Street failed, are you talking about Occupy Wall Street, or are you talking about Black
Yes,
Wall
excuse me.
Street?
Yeah, Occupy Wall Street.
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
sorry.
That's what I thought
Occupy
you meant.
Wall Street.
That's what I thought you meant.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, 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 so I'll just to add, like I was also thinking, I think these were just like, wow, some wonderful ways that you all mentioned, some wonderful ways to look at that as well. Wow. These chapters were like so powerful to me, but I think every chapter I've been thinking is powerful. I just like this book, but I was also thinking about Toni Morrison says that she seeks to examine the oppressor and not the oppressed. And I feel like if in the political arena, if we're going to keep, because obviously the federal government understands that there's a way that a black underclass has been created. It was manufactured. It's been produced. The black underclass is a reality, and this is a creation of America and a component of the mythology. But I was just thinking that if I look at what Toni Morrison says, that why do we keep focusing on the oppressed as opposed to studying the oppressor? And I do understand why, but in that it just kind of ticked me off when I read that, and I even wrote on my notes like why are you studying the black people though? It's just like to study, they said they wanted to study the question of race relationships, the needs of Negro women and children. Our needs were not any different at the core, right? The common needs. Our needs are common. With white people, the need to self-actualize, the need to have to meet basic needs, food, water, clothing, shelter, and so forth. But this notion that somehow we are the transgressors, that it's like keep studying the blacks. What would happen, I wonder, if we studied white psychology? Like I know we grow up doing it, but if it were in the books, if we were real about it, what happens when white psychology begins to be studied? Like, in school, I love when white women like to say, well, and then look at interracial marriages and black men, and then they get pissed off when I say, well, look at interracial marriages and white men and Asian women. So what happens when I get to the core of how they think? And their deviance and their transgressions. What makes you so violent? Why is there a real fear about white men going crazy in this country, even today? So I was just thinking about if it's political, because it's like saying that something's wrong with blacks, like blacks are the transgressors. No, we're what you created. In many ways, the condition of black people is what has been created, and so I was just also thinking about that.
And you're talking to a group of people, Nicole, who have read Medical Apartheid, where chapter after chapter for 400 pages, all we were reading about was how blacks were being studied and experimented on and made to be inferior. So it goes to the beginning of our sojourn here.
Yes. What did you all when you read that quote and looking at the study, and I was wondering like why it says the needs of Negro women and children. What about black men? I don't know. Might have been just like, well, why are you? After all, I can only imagine the trauma they must have presented with at that time, with the fear of lynching and so forth. Yeah.
Well, if I can, I believe that maybe they really, to defeat your your enemy or to have control over your enemy, you study them. That's a military tactic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe they knew the black man,
Hmm.
but they want to really know the effect of everything that is having on the women and on the children. And to your point, I think they really do. We don't know the psychology of a lot of white folk, a lot of Caucasians. Maybe anecdotally we may, but FBI do. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
They didn't did the profiles. You
Right.
know, they know who to go look for. You know what I mean?
So that's why the DC sniper, remember why they were searching for the wrong people.
Everybody was like, "Oh, damn,
That's true. That's true.
Nicole, I agree that we should study the oppressor. I wonder though, like another thing that you made me think about when you mentioned the Toni Morrison quote. She also said that when she meets racist people, when she comes across like really racist people and crazy people, she wants to leave them exactly how they are. She doesn't want to explain her humanity, doesn't want to debate, she just wants them to stay exactly how they are, and she just goes on about her life. But in the book, it came up that some of the black women started to believe like what the white women were spewing out, which I think is a form of brainwashing and like internalized racism and all of that. But that they became too elite to hang with the black people that are going through these things, and now they just want to represent. So in that case, I'm really interested in studying black people, in terms of like how does that like manifesting your psyche, that you've internalized and taken in all these things to now be too good, to still go through the same things, but be too good to like interact with the everyday low income women who don't have access to the same type of opportunities, who are also black. So that's why I'm conflicted. Like I want to but white people exhaust me. Like like focusing on white supremacy is so draining. Like I feel like I'm going in a circle, and that's what medical apartheid felt like, which is why we had to take such a break. And we took multiple breaks doing it because it just became like Michelle was saying, it was like every chapter it just kept getting crazier. Like there's like no end. So I just don't know. I don't know how we would study the oppressor because it's just never ending. It seems like it's just like
months.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, I think one of our problems, and y'all, please forgive me, I might be a little radical today, but you know what? Increasingly, because I think to be transparent, I think I'm dealing with my own fears, right? Because here I am. I've grown up in old conservative southern Texas, and I have a son graduating, and I'm getting ready to send my son away. And, as a mother, I have got to stay prayed up because it's just so much. I mean, obviously there are things he can get involved in and get it, but I think I'm more worried about these white domestic terrorists in my black son's body. But I just think that I was kind of more so focusing on like if we thought about well, let me just say this. Let me just be. What would happen if we started teaching black children that, like in schools at early ages, you are an enemy of the state. It's nothing you've done. I've been in circles and activist circles, and I've seen other what we would consider ethnic minority activists, like from Palestine and Pakistan and so forth, and they have a way of teaching their children that, some of them, I'm not saying all of them, but I'm sorry, my phone fell. I was just kind of taken aback to know that they actually some of them teach their children that you are the enemy, and these people will attempt to take you out, and I just wonder if we taught black children that in schools, and if we started doing the work to teach them that, okay, like you're the enemy and changing the shifting curriculum. But again, it would take, I mean, of course, we couldn't do that in integrated schools. You get run out of there as a teacher. But I guess more in segregated circles. I guess I'm just wondering what would happen if we started to, if we did internalize, if more of us, shall I say, internalize the fact that we are treated like we're enemies of the state, that a government can watch us suffer, watch Black people. So I was, read, and they were saying that white people, the unemployment rate right now in Black America, and also white Americans dealing with unemployment, but consistently they would never, white people will rebel so much faster. They will burn this sucker down. So I don't know. might be radical.
Well, I don't know if teaching children that they are an enemy of the state is. I'm thinking more confidence. Like what I observe from like white people and people who are not Black. There's like a different type of confidence. Maybe because they know that essentially they're all right. We all know that we can't do certain things that white people can do, but then I went to Ghana and I realized that there was, like, even though they do train the kids to say, Abruni Coco, how are you, when they see a white person, because they've been taught that white equates to wealth.
Right.
They don't see any of the Black tourists. There is like a different type of confidence. Like I can't explain it. Like it's just because they're not competing with, or fighting for their life all day. Everybody in the country looks just like them.
Right.
So there's a confidence that, not saying that they, when they come over here, of course they experience like race becomes different for them. From what I've been told from friends who are not from America, but there's a different type of, there's like a certainty and a confidence and an assurance that they're all right. And so I wonder if maybe just teaching that would be helpful, because I wasn't taught to be confident. Because my parents, I don't think they didn't mean to teach that. I think they just assumed that we would be. But then obviously we're also not talking about how race is impacting the family and all that. So that doesn't come up till we all go to college and get some sense, and come home. And now everybody can talk about it. So everybody doesn't go to college, and a lot of things aren't accessible to us. So I wonder if we have been taught to be, sure and confident, and but still aware, if that would also impact how we are and how our mortality rate, how long we live.
True. Do you think, like, if we felt that way, like, okay, we're in this nation, and it was much the same as the women faced. It's an issue of enfranchisement. As a citizen, you're supposed to be protected by this government. That's supposed to be a blessing of, or a condition of citizenship, right? And so, but I wonder if Black students knew that early on, that I just wonder, like, what would the outcomes be in terms of Black businesses, in terms of,
Nicole, the one thing is with that question that you raised earlier about what would happen if we studied white people. We actually had that as a question. I don't know if you guys remember in one of our medical apartheid meetings. We had that question. But the thing to keep in mind is that so much of this is about power. And so who gets the funding to conduct the research?
Right.
What kinds of questions become legitimate research questions? All of that, when you talk about the political function of social science, all of that plays into how they're able to direct the research in a particular direction. And it's been like that from the beginning, the unequal power dynamic. But I also wanted to say about social science in general, you learn, when you first go to college and start to take a social science course, that social science is not the same as science.
Right. Right.
that it is by its very nature open to interpretation and reinterpretation and reinterpretation. And I think that's a big part of why we can't ever settle on anything.
Right.
But we're living in an era where even hard science
Right.
inform policy.
Yeah.
So, it's just on something stupid. But in terms of Black children, I think we cannot forget that we came out of a segregated society. And so part of what Giddings is looking at in these two chapters is how Black women were trying to figure out the in search of self, the search for identity. Looking at the questions of, do we want to acculturate into American society, or do we want a society where we can be culturally distinct, or do we want something else? And so the whole move toward integration, which we see starting, in this era of the 1920s, but until those, until we got up into the 60s and 70s, we had very segregated societies, and while they were separate and unequal, somehow we were managing to turn out some very productive individuals, high achieving individuals. And so, certainly you're not going to get a message through that is empowering to a Black child in a modern public school setting. But until we go back and really grapple with that fundamental issue of what is it that we want.
Michelle, would you like to have more time?
Yeah. And so there's a big homeschooling movement going on now, for example, and which I think is very healthy, because until we figure out the public school problem, which has been going on forever, then we still have to ask ourselves, what are we subjecting our children to when we send them into these hostile environments, not by the time your kids are in college, but from preschool on. From preschool on, they're starting with the standardized testing and the comparison, and telling us that our kids are not good enough, and telling us that our kids have this deficiency and that deficiency.
And don't you would you all categorize standardized testing as a tenet or a component of social science? Do you see standardized testing?
I do, absolutely.
Yeah.
I look at standardized testing as any kind of test is to exclude, not to include. Any kind of test. And
they're culturally biased.
Yeah, they're culturally biased, and you're exactly right. They're culturally biased. They teach you how to take tests, and if it's culturally slanted, they already know the means and the ends. So so testing and books and what they're teaching. And back to Michelle, you had a very, very good point as usual, that they already know the problem of the school system. They intend not to fix them. They know that the optimum number of students in a classroom. They already know how many they need, how many teachers they need. How many should be in an entire school is 300 per school. They already know this. They intend not to fix it. We already know that Head Start works. We already know that preschool works. We know that.
Yeah.
So.
I agree.
So
I think there's also the prison, I'm sorry, the school, the public school to prison pipeline, where they look at standardized tests in the 3rd grade to see how many prison beds to build. So
yeah.
it's all connected. But I just wanted to go back to your question in terms of should we study white people? We are studying white people. You know, when you read American apartheid, medical apartheid, you are studying white people. You know, I don't think you can separate what they did to who they are. I think that you got to understand what actually happened, what didn't happen, because a lot of what was in medical apartheid, I did not know. I had no idea, and so I think it's just very, very helpful to understand what history is and what it isn't. And I also agree with Michelle that you have to teach your children who you are. And if you're asking someone else to teach your children who you are, baby, you know,
Right.
that's where we are. You
That's
know,
right.
so I don't know. And then I just think that what goes on in the dark, you got to shed light on it before you can start saying, let's look at white people. And I love that there's a book, The Invention of White People, where I heard the author talk about that a little bit, and how everybody's white now who wasn't white before.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a concept that has no validity to it at all. And so I don't know. And then you want to look at the Native Americans. What happened to them? It's a wide. I think studying and and learning what actually happened in history, and then comparing that to the Constitution and the American dream that this country says it lives by. That's where I think the rub is that you're saying you're this person, but when I turn the lights on, I don't see it.
Nicole, I am dying to read this passage from another book. Do you mind, you all?
Go right ahead.
This is my other current reading. It's called The Warmth of Other Suns. Anybody read it?
Oh my God. Haven't read it yet.
I've heard about it.
You read it, Georgette?
I started it, haven't finished it yet. It's pretty thick.
Oh my God, it's so good. The Warmth of Other Suns, The Epic Story of America's Great Migration by Isabel Wilkerson. And this particular passage that I'm going to read from you is about the lynching of Claude Neal. And so we keep talking about studying white people. I was telling Venita about this story the other day, but Venita, this is the whole passage. And then in the fall of 1934, when George was a teenager and old enough to take note of such things, perhaps the single worst act of torture and execution in the 20th century America occurred in the panhandle town of Marianna, Florida, a farm settlement halfway between Pensacola and Tallahassee. That October, a 23-year-old colored farmhand named Claude Neal was accused of the rape and murder of a 20-year-old white woman named Lola Kennedy. Neal had grown up across the road from Lola Kennedy's family. He was arrested and signed a written confession that historians have since called into question. But at the time, passions ran so high that a band of more than 300 men, armed with guns, knives, torches, and dynamite, went searching for Neal in every jail within a 75-mile radius of Marianna. The manhunt forced the authorities to move Neal across the panhandle from Marianna to Panama City by car, to Camp Walton by boat, to Pensacola by car again, with the mob on their trail at every turn. Finally, the Escambia County Sheriff, fearing that his jail in Pensacola was too dilapidated to withstand attack, decided to take Neal out of state altogether to the tiny town of Brewton, Alabama, 55 miles north of Pensacola. Someone leaked Neal's whereabouts, and a lynching party of some 100 men drove several hours on Highway 231 in a 30-car caravan from Florida to Alabama. There, the men managed to divert the local sheriff and overtake the deputy. They stormed the jail and took Neil, his limbs bound with a plow rope, back to Marianna. It was the early morning hours of October 26th, a Friday. Neil's chief abductors, a self-described committee of six, an oddly officious term commonly used by the leaders of Southern lynch mobs, set the lynching for 8 p.m., when most everyone would be off work. The advance notice allowed word to spread by radio, teletype, and afternoon papers to the Western time zones. Well before the appointed hour, several thousand people had gathered at the lynching site. The crowd grew so large and unruly, people, having been given sufficient forewarning to come in from other states, that the Committee of Six, fearing a riot, took Neil to the woods by the Chipola River to wait out the crowds and torture him before the execution. There, his captors took knives and castrated him in the woods. Then they made him eat the severed body parts and say he liked it, a witness said. One man threw up at the sight, wrote the historian James McGovern. Around Neil's neck they tied a rope and pulled it over a limb to the point of his choking before lowering him to take up the torture again. Every now and then somebody would cut off a finger or toe, the witness said. Then the men used hot irons to burn him all over his body in a ritual that went on for several hours. It is almost impossible to believe that a human being could stand such unspeakable torture for such a long period, wrote the white undercover investigator retained by the NAACP. The crowd waiting in town never got to see Neil die. The Committee of Six decided finally to just kill him in the woods. His nude body was then tied to the back of a car and dragged to the Kennedy house, where men, women, and children stabbed the corpse with sticks and knives. The dead girl's father was angry that Neil was killed before he could get to him. They've done me wrong about the killing, the father said. They promised me they would bring him up to my house before they killed him and let me have the first shot. That's what I wanted. The committee hanged the body from an oak tree on the courthouse lawn. People reportedly displayed Neil's fingers and toes as souvenirs. Postcards of his dismembered body went for 50 cents each. When the sheriff cut down the body the next morning, a mob of as many as 2,000 people demanded that it be rehanged. When the sheriff refused to return it to the tree, the mob attacked the courthouse and rampaged through Marianna, attacking any colored person they ran into. Well-to-do whites hid their maids or sent cars to bring their workers to safety. We needed these people, said a white man who sat on his porch protecting his interests with a loaded Winchester. So it goes on from there. But we have studied these people. Black people have known white people better than they know themselves. Absolutely. Because we've had to, because our lives have depended on it. Yeah. And we have seen viciousness that just defies description. It just defies description. So when we see the kind of madness that is going on today, it's very scary. because it seems to be unleashing something. It seems to be taking at least some of them back to this essential place where they have to have this ritual of periodically. This week we see the goddamn George Zimmerman selling the gun.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that?
$250,000, right? He made $250,000, right?
Wow.
I don't even know. I don't even know.
Do you think it's the rhetoric? Like, I'm thinking with these in studying, I wonder if we use the rhetoric that Toni Morrison uses when she straight up, and it's also channeling Paula Freire, saying oppressor and oppressed. I wonder would that matter? And another thing, I like what you said about power, because even when it is done, we don't really have, so reading that text, reading these books, bringing those in the classroom, it's, we're not doing it enough. It's not. I was thinking about my question when I said to teach black children that they are enemies of the state. But I wouldn't even have to say the words if I brought that excerpt, the literature. That's powerful enough.
Yes, the literature, which you can't bring this in a whole lot of classrooms. We have to look at the work that has to be done at home, in family, in community. We've got textbooks now calling the slaves workers,
right?
Immigrants,
right? Immigrant workers. Gosh, these people.
I believe that with rhetoric, and I think about the rhetoric that's going on now in the last 8 years. I always look at the president, the office of the president of the United States, the office, the very chair, and the disrespect that they've shown this president, regardless of whether you believe in his politics or don't believe in his politics.
We've never
the
seen
military. Yeah, the military, you hear about generals, and that there have been things that it was over 300 generals that was fired during the President Obama administration because of, when you have the commander-in-chief, there is a law in the military that states that you cannot, as a military member, speak against the commander-in-chief, or you can be court-martialed. But when you have officers that allow that, so you go and you allow that to go on for 8 years, and you look at the blatant disrespect that are shown to senators and other people that are trying to run for the president of the United States, but they allow that to fester because they allow the president of the United States. Now you have all of this mess that's all out in the open. And let's think about this here. There's never been a time in America. There's never been a time in America where you have so many families of mixed race. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, there's so many families that have, whether, your son is married to a German wife or married to a Caucasian girl or Hispanic or things like this here, and you have to raise your children in this here. But getting back to the writings of the book, and what is really wrong with the education system is they don't want to tell the story. I was told y'all, if you tell the story, you won't repeat it. You know what I mean? There are good people out there that's in this country that hate what happened. There are good people. Every time I begin to hate white people, one of them come along and fuck it up. I'm gonna tell you that right now. They are good people throughout. But what is happening is that right now in America, good people are being quiet about what's going on, about ignorance, about stupidity, about stupid education, about the earth is 6,000 years old, that there is no climate change, with the science and stuff. There
Well,
are people
Joel,
just sitting
I
back.
think they don't feel any stronger than, just like the black women in these chapters, expected that the white women would be able to get some
Right.
control over their men.
Right.
But it
Yeah,
was
that
an
was crazy.
unrealistic expectation.
Right.
I think that
Mhm.
that's what it's like now, that we think there are these good people out there of all colors and persuasions, and they're just being quiet. But I don't know that the good people feel that sense of power. That
Right.
I don't know that they feel
I,
that there are enough of them.
no, I think it's just the opposite. I believe that they think that these people are just going to go away, that they're a nuisance, that they're one end of the spectrum. You understand what I'm saying? I think they think people like Donald Trump is going to take care of himself. Well, it'll take care of itself, and then we got an idiot in the White House again. So, but that's my opinion. I mean, that is my put it this way. That's my hope.
Right. Hmm. Wow.
I don't know. I could be idealistic. I mean, I still should be. I don't know.
I understand.
We need prayers. So I do just wanted to add one thing. I see this trend of powerlessness based on real estate and how this country never before has allowed so many foreign interests to buy the land and displace people. And so that goes across racial divides, that so many people have lost their footing. So when it comes to fighting Trump, you're looking at where you might sleep tonight if you're moving into a homeless shelter, or what minority person you now need to displace so that, you may be, you know, moving, going through whatever you're going through yourself, because this country is no longer belongs to Americans the way it had in previous decades. So that's why I think when you look at this election, there's this huge distraction.
Yes.
And at a time where you can't afford the distraction, you just can't afford it.
And don't you think that the racial component is just an effect of what the real problem is hyper capitalism,
Yes.
and the race component is just the race component is just a scapegoat for the very ultra wealthy, while we
Yes.
in our caste system that we have in America, so the middle class and the poor can just point at each other versus addressing the problem that's probably institutionalized in the first place.
That's right. Because you see in newspapers now, there's so much focus on African American criminals. Oh, he's on the paper because he stole somebody's cell phone. But you have so many people that now they have deeds being stolen. People are actually stealing African Americans' homes.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Oh
make
yeah.
the newspaper. What makes the newspaper is watch out for him. Watch out for him. But let's not look at how we have created a system that would allow a state agency to give your deed to someone else. So I agree with you 100%, Joel.
Yeah.
May I
Media
add
technologies.
something? And I'm not supposed to be in a conversation tonight, but I just can't help myself.
You go ahead.
Okay.
We have to also realize, and I've observed that with my children growing up in a predominantly white area at that time, and I mean predominantly, like 98.999%. That Joelle mentioned the fact of interracial marriages. There are more interracial marriages and children being produced outside of marriage, inside of marriage than ever before. And with that, many times my observation has been with the more educated interracial marriages. Let's face it, in this country, interracial means black and white. They don't notice if it's Asian, if it's a person from Japan and India. It's black or white. Along with that, there is a lot of, and it's by design, folks that gradually their sense of self has changed, if you know what I mean. So I can't depend on them. So it still comes back to, I can be a rebel with a cause. But just like the good white folk, at some point, how many people have my back? So when you look at the change in capitalism and social science, you have to also look at that part of it. And I have had many conversations, most of it listening, because I love to listen. It's a good thing. And there's a shift everywhere. So not only do we feel powerless, there's there's elements of being powerless or having less power, even if you want to fight the power. Did I say that clearly?
Yes.
Or was I too diplomatic? But that has been my observation. You know, that might not be everyone else's, but I, am noticing that right within my family, not immediate family, but extended family. That they don't want to hear that anymore.
That what? That black stuff?
That's I was thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle.
And,
They don't want to hear that black stuff anymore. The world is changing so quickly that there are some that even think that we become colorless. And I've actually had people say that to me, that it's become colorless, So, opposed to when I was a young woman and I went to all black elementary school, everybody was black. It was a rainbow of colors of black. But still, we weren't colorless. We never claimed to be, So I see that as another deterrent for some folks getting out there. It's a different world, different thought process.
Oh, I love that. Venita, I love that question you posed. I had to write that down. It's like, who are we in community with? That is just profound to me today. Wow.
Again, I don't mind fighting, but I don't know what I'm fighting, and I don't know anymore. I think, I got you, but I have to know. And that's a problem that I'm finding, today.
And that's why I do think it would be interesting for us to read this book in the future.
I'm afraid of that book. I'm telling you now.
It's not all like that, Kim.
Kim not doing it. Kim not doing it.
It's not all like that. It's really very beautifully written. And I was saying, and I love beautiful writing, and we haven't, to me, really had a lot of that, in our 6 books. Remember Danielle McGuire at The Dark in the Street? She was just like, boom, boom, boom. Alice Walker is a beautiful writer, but her book was
I was lost on that.
Yeah, it was a little information light. I mean, it was, it was beautiful writing, but, Medical Apartheid was very factual, very informative, and I agree, Venita, Harry did not have time to be putting flowers and whatnot in the middle of the pages, and she did not.
No time, none.
That we did the fiction thing, and that was okay, but this is excellent. This is a combination of information, but written in such a way, like the passage that I read you, where you really get a very good description of what things were like.
I was
And
there. I was there in the woods. I was there
yeah,
in the house in the car. I was there.
yeah, she makes you feel it. She really makes you feel it. And so the reason, what I'm saying is, this is about the Great Migration. And so, to me, like what we're reading now, we're getting a lot of the factual uh, issues around migration, but this is giving us a lot of the context. And like we were talking about last week, the sort of differences between Northerners and Southerners, and the misunderstandings, and the question about who has my back now. Well, that question is really shaped, in part by changes that came about as a result of this Great Migration. So I think it would be good from a lot of angles for us to look at it at some point.
Okay, so time.
Okay. Okay. So did anyone like the literary excerpts? Well, I guess that I misused that term. She described, summarized even the literature. But did any of those excerpts or her descriptions, did you identify with any of those? And if so, why, of Fawcett and Larson and Hurston? Those three lived.
I identified with Nella Larson's the question of where do I belong, but I'm torn between Nella Larson and the feminism of Their Eyes Were Watching God. With Nella Larson, where do I belong? I think for me, partly because of the way I grew up, as a preacher's kid moving constantly across the country, I've always had this sense of not really belonging anywhere. But I also think it is related to my spirit or my personality or something. Because my brothers grew up in the same way, and they're very different people. So I think it's just, I think for me it is a discomfort about our purpose on earth. Where do I? In fact, my reading circle, is a part of the effort that I have been on to find my people. That's been going on for about a decade. Because I'm like, something ain't right here. It's just too off. So there's that. But I also really relate to Zora Neale Hurston's and Janie's issue about not trying to get, not wanting to be constrained by other people's conceptions and small conceptions of who I am and what I can be. So.
Anyone else? Oh. Randie?
Oh. It's so bad. I was trying to figure out a way to jump in and be like, I gotta go. But I rarely have to do that. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, it is after 8 o'clock, so we should.
Oh my gosh! You know what, guys? I'm so sorry. I have to. I'm looking at 7:09 my time. I have to remember it. 8 o'clock.
We forgot.
I don't. Be like,
everybody. Should we quickly do find the feminine? But I guess that really was kind of find the feminism.
Yeah, we don't have to. I mean, okay. You have to go, Randie?
Yes, I'm sorry, y'all. For real this time. Last time I got away with it. But this time.
She's married now.
I'm sorry. I miss you guys. This was great. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Michelle, I'm gonna send you a Can we like talk Sunday? Cause I do want to get the camera down. We haven't discussed that since last time.
Okay.
But I'll send you like a text about it.
Okay.
All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye.
Okay.
Bye, Randie.
Bye, Randie.
Wow. Well, this was great. Great questions. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to do better next time. I won't have so many questions, but yeah.
Well,
yes, we'll know that when we see it. Okay, so you don't feel like that. We'll find out later. You know the time. We got you.
We got another Michelle on steroids here.
Steroids.
Steroids.
I was like, oh, I get a challenge.
Oh, no. That's what you guys are supposed to do. Make us think about this material.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, no, but really for me though, what I mean, this was fun. It was fun for me, Nicole, to have a challenge. But really, what I have been trying to do with the group, because it's certainly in the beginning we were completely open to the public. Anybody could pop by at any point. And so I really wanted to just have an everyday people kind of feel, and because my thing is, there's nothing so difficult about the concepts that we need to understand in our lives, but that the academic experience tends to goes off in a conversation. I always say to people, PhDs, they're having a conversation with themselves, and they have to, because at a certain level, in order for you to get the promotions and get the opportunities and all of that, you have to be in a conversation with your peers. But it's not that the ideals are that difficult. And I have always been pretty good, or I think I'm pretty good at taking what look like complex ideas and breaking them down into everyday language so that everyday people can understand them. Because my thing is, it is us. It is everyday people. What we believe matters. We are the ones raising the children. We are the ones voting. We are the masses. And so what's in our head, what we understand, what we believe matters. But if we can't present it in a way that is accessible, then we have that. So, this group obviously handled it well, and that's great. But I don't even know if the other members of my group know that kind of has been the agenda that I have had. Also, if you'll notice the way I kind of have been doing questions, I stray away from like asking people the kind of questions that you get asked in school. Well, what happened here and what happened? Because I'm trying to foster to me, nobody ever asked Black people what we think.
Right.
And you really have to get to the doctorate level before anybody pretends like they're interested in what you think. And so until then, all we're asked to do is repeat, well, what did this one say, and what did that one say? Nobody ever asked us, what do we think about what Paula Giddings said? But to me, that's what matters. What we think, because what we think is going to inform what we do in our lives. So the whole, like the thing about what do we teach our children? Well, what we think about that matters. And so no matter what Paula Giddings has to say about it, or Isabel Wilkerson has to say about it, or Dr. whoever has to say about it, if as individuals we decide that it is important for us to prepare our children with a certain level of knowledge, we're in a position to do that. We don't have to wait on a school system to do anything. We don't have to wait on a leader to do anything. We are moving as individuals in our own lives. So I am very committed to what do everyday people think, and how do they get that knowledge and process it? You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely agree. Absolutely. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so Venita, but thank you, Nicole. This was wonderful. Really wonderful.
Thank you.
Like I said, I had a lot of fun. I have 3 pages of notes.
Nicole.
Yes,
Nicole,
I hear you, Venita.
I was trolling a little bit because I was going to friend you. Just in case I drop dead or something and you could pass the word on. I'll take one of them girls over there. You got 2. Okay. Yeah, I would take one of those and you won't even miss her. You have one more left.
Okay.
Your families are fabulous. Those girls are fabulous.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just take one over here. You got one. Everybody's okay.
Yes.
I have this boy thing, and they so cute all over.
Well, Venita had 2 boys. I had 1 boy.
Oh, okay.
And so when we got to know Randie, we were just like fighting over. No, I'm the mama. No, I'm the mama.
No, and then Kim got a daughter. Praise God. We can talk about her sometime. But those 2 over there, you can send one right here. I'll take care of her.
Okay. Venita, that makes me, I love your comment. I really did. I wrote it down. Who are we in community with? I love that, but I just really want to say, I know I've expressed it to you all already, but I just really want to say again, I just love this reading circle, and I just feel it's so interesting that I feel so rejuvenated after we have discussions. It's like I'm with my favorite aunts and cousins, and it's just it's a blessing, really.
One of your cousins got a damn mustache.
Yeah, my cousin. Yes, you definitely. And you handle. I mean, and just being with the women, Joelle, you just it's just it's phenomenal.
Nicole, don't praise him about anything.
I know Joelle likes the history and the. I'm kind of learning because Joelle comes with the historical, the political, and then Kim, I love that Kim kind of brings in, and it makes sense when I learn that you're in banking, and so it's like, oh, okay, the kind of thinking like on the capitalism and the real estate. It's just like it's so interesting that I'm just learning so much. Thank y'all. And then Georgette is always like the balance there.
Yeah.
That's Georgette.
And it's okay. Everybody knows I'm a wild woman.
Oh no, and Michelle, our ideas are a lot alike. So it's just like Michelle, our ideas, like you're talking, and I try not to do that the whole call and response, but I'm always, like yes, and then Venita, she's just telling, like, I just love it. It's just, look, I'm just gonna tell it, say it. I just love it. So thank y'all so much. Y'all have just brought so much to my life. So thank you.
Oh,
Nicole. Glad to hear.
I loved your questions, but I figured you out. I
didn't hear you say it again, Kim. I didn't hear you.
I loved your questions and your summaries, but I figured you out. You were trying to slip in 75 topics on.
You are so right.
Yeah.
That's true. Oh, You know what? In hindsight, one of the issues I had, I was having tech difficulty, so I had to ask Michelle because I couldn't really see. I had to do it in Hotmail, my Word Online. So what I usually can go back and read, and I would have caught that. Oh my God, you've asked. You know, this is like asking like 5 questions in one. But I didn't catch it because I had to tell Michelle like. Ask her kindly if you could help me. Like I couldn't tell the page breaks or anything. So, but next time.
Well, really, it's okay though. You know, I told you that usually we can't get through more than about 3 or 4 questions because really we have 7 people in the group. If each person had 3 minutes and answered a question, that would be 20 minutes per question, you know, 21 minutes per question. That's your hour.
Right? That's right.
You know, and so usually everybody doesn't answer a question, but that's, you know, that's, however, I am famous for, you know, coming up with quite a few questions. So I don't have a problem with it, because even if we can't get to them in group, people can still look at them and think about them. And like I said, that's what I want. I want us to think. I want us to start thinking as a people, because we got a lot of stuff to figure out.
Yes, we do. Let's go.
Well,
I agree.
Michelle, excuse me, when everything is said and done, could you fall back for a minute?
Okay.
And don't forget, Nicole, I want one of those girls. Now you can choose.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take you. I'm not trying to be greedy. I'm going to give you one. But you can choose one.
Okay. Y'all have a good night, okay?
Good night,
everybody. Good night.
Have a good week.
Good night, Kim.
Good night, Nicole. Good night, Michelle. Good night, Kim. Good night, Georgette. Good night, Kim. Boy.